Jolly good. Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to this Cabinet meeting. It's the 12th of March, 2024. Let's start with any apologies for absence. We have apologies from Councillor Rebecca Breeze. I think that'll be it, won't it? Yep, good. Does any member have any declaration of interest for any item that's shown on this evening's agenda? No, thank you. We have some minutes. These are minutes of our last meeting, which was held here on the 13th of February. Every member of the Cabinet has had the chance to look at the minutes. Are there any suggested corrections or amendments?
Close that.
Thank you. If you're in agreement, can you signal your agreement to that, please? Is that agreed? Oh, I beg your pardon. Sorry, Adam, I didn't see you signal.
Just to note, Chairman, that I emailed Democratic Services earlier today with answers to questions put to Cabinet by Councillor Randall in our last meeting. Just to say that I emailed Democratic Services earlier today with answers to questions put to Cabinet by Councillor Randall at our last meeting so that they can be on the public record.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you, Adam. Subject to that, then, we'll agree and sign off the minutes. There. We have no particular announcements this evening, not been advised of any urgent business that we need to consider. So let's move straight on then to our first agenda item. This is item 6, report of the overview and scrutiny committee. What we're going to do here is ask, first of all, the chairman of the scrutiny committee and the task and finish group, that's Councillor Andre Gonzalez-Savage and Councillor Alison Eastwood, to come to the table there and just pick through the highlights, tell us a little bit about this piece of work and make the recommendations. Over to you. We'll get you another one, Andre.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the Cabinet. Thank you for the opportunity to present our report this evening in terms of the opportunity to look very much at voice scooters and the use of them throughout West Northamptonshire, something we were asked to do and was requested through full council motion, which then went through the proper process of having a referral through to scrutiny, which was accepted by the scrutiny committee, and therefore we proceeded to establish a task and finish group. So that we don't overlap commentary, I'd like to invite the chairman of the task and finish group, Councillor Alison Eastwood, who's here this evening, to give you the flavour and overview of that particular report that's obviously within the papers today, and understand that quite clearly this is not an active travel scheme that we were commenting upon, whether it's good, bad or indifferent, but quite clearly looking very much at the micro-mobility option that is available throughout West Northamptonshire and follows a government trial. And therefore, clearly we have certain local powers, if you like, but absolutely we're weighing it against those users, and clearly the definition of the users and those who took part in surveys that were sent through. We had a very good engagement all the way through, and I'll get Alison to confirm those details to you, but we had nearly 3,000 respondents to our questionnaires and our surveying. And it was a fully inclusive task and finish group that tasked to sort it and did finish it correctly. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So with your indulgence, if I may.
Yes, let's welcome Alison to tell us more. Thank you, Andre.
Thank you.
Thank you, Andre. Boy Task and Finish Group, Chairman, Councillors, Officers, Ladies and Gentlemen. As you are aware, we have completed this Task and Finish Group in a period of 6 weeks. We've been well served by many parties, and all parties have given selflessly of their time and energy during a very busy Christmas period and over the new year. The recommendation to Cabinet is that there are benefits both economically and environmentally to provide a compelling case for the retention of the scheme and to continue with the trial. However, this comes with a very strong recommendation on specific terms related to that trial. All parties will need to monitor and play their part. Further investigation must be made into technological advance, enforcement, endorsement, development, governance, and education. All are essential to future progress. Key areas are, but not limited to, parking, speeding zones, riding up and down streets the wrong or the right way, tandem riding, geofencing to prevent riding on pavements, and underage riding, and false use of driving licenses. We recommend a roadmap to track future progress achieving improvements. Accountability and oversight by monitoring RIP to the Council and Cabinet every 6 months. The place and overview and scrutiny committee as part of the monitoring regime requests that Cabinet provide at the conclusion of the e-scooter trial a progress report. Just for the record, and I'm slightly surprised she's not here tonight, Councillor Emma Roberts is not happy with this report as she feels inquiries and investigation had too little time to explore and complete scrutiny. She cited Jonathan Nunn as an expert on the matter, but I had requested he join the investigation as a using member of the public. Emma herself called her own choice of contributor who had written 600 emails to Boy. Councillor Larratt agreed with his presentation. We also set up a public survey monitored by Stuart Timmis and Nick Henstock, to which we received over 2,500 replies. Bearing in mind this is a recommendation, I think the committee has met the key lines of the inquiry and are ready to submit to Cabinet. Before I finish, I'd just like to thank the entire committee who gave, as I said, of themselves selflessly. They all turned up. Those that didn't knew they couldn't be there. I'd like to make a real thanks to Tracy and Marina for backing me personally and guiding me through the storm. I'd never sat on a scrutiny committee, let alone do a task and force issue. I thank Andre for his guidance, but I would also like to particularly say thank you to Stuart Timmis and Nick Henstock for their guidance. Their advice was invaluable, and you are all the beneficiaries of it from page 17 to page 66.
That's brilliant. Thank you. We'll just see if anybody wants to ask any questions at all. Phil, did you want to make any comments at this point or ask any questions of?
Well, just a comment, Chair, if I may. I think the scrutiny group did a really fantastic job in a very short time, and I think my comments perhaps in the report reflect that. So again, I'll reiterate my thanks to Alison for chairing it and leading it, and for all those who participated, not only members, but of course all the people who came along to provide evidence as well. I welcome the recommendations, and I think we've got to ensure that the conditions of the continuance of the scheme are reflected. What has come out of scrutiny is reflected in the continuance of the scheme, perhaps with deadlines and things like that, by when they've got to complete certain aspects. Otherwise, we'll never get them done. We've got to be really rigorous in how we apply these recommendations in order to deliver, Chair, going forward. But thanks to everybody. Great report. Happy to note it for now, and we'll come back formally with recommendation with our thoughts in due course. But I'm minded to say, great piece of work, great recommendations. Let's go forward with them.
Yes, a comment from me too. Sorry, Alison, please, after you.
I'm just going to say thank you.
It's nice. And likewise for me, thank you for the work. It was a tremendous amount, good response, short period of time. It was really brilliantly done. Well done to everybody involved, but particularly to you, Alison. I don't consider myself an expert, but I do use the scooters weekly. And when other councils were taking these things on and then deciding to abandon them, we stuck to make it better. We pioneered the registration plates here, which now are mandatory on all these schemes, and that's because we look for solutions. We also have been hard on the penalties. Plenty of people no longer use them because they have had 3 strikes and they're out. So we're looking to solve problems on these, and you've given us the next steps to do that. Many things have been improved, but key things like pavement riding and parking still need more. So I welcome all of your recommendations. And I think what we've got here is, as Phil says, conditions for the renewal, and you've given our officers, you've fully equipped them really as they go into the negotiation of the scheme extension. We understand that Voi wouldn't invest at the tail end without that certainty, but now they have the certainty of the extension. They're in a strong position to invest and implement the things that you've suggested. So thank you very much indeed.
Mr. Chairman, could I just extend also our thanks to those agencies who also supported the particular task and finish group. And I know that Alison did just that in terms of welcoming them to the groups. And obviously we had a very tight timescale that wasn't set by us, but obviously set by council and process. And I have to say that we had full attendance there by the police, obviously many departments from the council and also North Northampton Council as well. So we're engaging right across the county of Northamptonshire. So that's very useful indeed. A very open and engaging opportunity that was also hybrid as well. And therefore it wasn't a fixed meeting point. They were able to assist in thinking everything that we did. We could have added all sorts, and I am a scooter rider also, and we could have definitely added all sorts of points to it. We didn't. We kept it as neutral as possible. We didn't raise the problems of inconsiderate drivers, not in scooters, but in cars, who regularly hassle me and others, I'm sure, on scooters when we are law-abiding and doing exactly the right thing. We'd obviously always recommend that everyone wore safety equipment, and that includes a helmet where we possibly can.
Brilliant.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you both very much. Well, let's move to our further speakers. The first of which is Councillor Bidsworth. Sally, over to you.
Good evening, everyone, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, everybody. Just wanted to say, I've read the report and I've discussed it with a lot of people. And although the conditions you're putting forward I gratefully receive, but I do have concerns about these scooters. They're very useful for getting people to work when they haven't got buses in the area, and they're very useful to get around campus at the university. I understand that they are very useful, but there also can be an absolute menace. I saw 3 children riding them the other day, and I just couldn't believe it. They were in a line, 3 of them, on one scooter. And I just thought, you know, and they weren't adults, these were children. I saw another couple that one was on the pavement. They go on the pavement. I've been to see to the Association of the Blind, and they're very worried about them because they can't hear them when they're coming, and that is a bit of a worry because they can't hear them. I've had a gentleman that was run off the road in his scooter, and now he's terrified to leave the house. It has a huge impact on older people because they can't hear them. They can't move quickly to get out the way. And it's not the scooter's fault, it's the driver's fault. There's nothing wrong with the scooters. They do a very good service. It's the people that ride them. And when you turn around and shout at somebody, please be careful, and they just turn around and swear at you, it doesn't go down very well. And I was talking to a girl today. She had one of them run into her car, and she had the time on her slip that she just come out of the dentist. She rang up Voi and said, chap's just run into my car. This was the exact time. This is the location. And they looked it up and it said it's an unknown driver. You know, and so if there are lots of things we can do to improve this, and I'm very pleased with the tax and finish group. There's no criticism from me there, but we have to realize that even with 3,000 people writing in, you think of the size of the town and county that we support, and how many people visit here. And it's basically, it's training for the riders that we need. We need to make sure that people are riding these sensibly, are polite and courteous, not shouting at old people because they're in the way, and riding on pavements that people can't hear them or see them. So I really do hope that these restrictions you're putting forward are strong enough to protect the public, because I think that's what we're here to do, is to safeguard the public. But I agree with them. They are an asset to a lot of people to get to work. I have no problem with that. So I just want you to realise that, hope that this will be governed very closely by whoever's doing it. Thank you.
Lovely. Thank you, Sally. And you know, I agree with a lot with what you say. There is training to ride them. You can attend a safety course. I've attended one just to see what they're all about and so on. Andre makes a good point. You should wear a helmet. I often don't, so I probably should do that myself. In many ways, many of these problems are the same as cycling. So you can cycle on the pavement. Cycles are silent. The difference with bikes is you cannot stop people riding a bike. You can stop them riding a scooter. And all these situations you mentioned. So the registration plate is a combination of 4 digits and letters. If you got the chance to get your phone out and photo it, that's great, or even try and remember it and report it, and we will follow it up. It may be difficult without the photographic evidence, but we will report it, because ultimately somebody has put a driving license through there. Somebody has used a driving license, and if they're, you know, let's say that, you know, a young child has taken their mother's driving license or something, people are getting penalty points through the misuse, and these are penalty points on your license. You can get 3 points if, for example, you know, something like some of the things you were describing, or the wrong way up a one-way street. People are getting penalties on their licenses. So it's up to us to continue to report them as best we can, and also to know that we haven't yet got rid of all the problems with cycling. We're not banning bikes. We get cycling on the pavements and so on, but just as determined as you are to iron out these last problems. Thank you. Thank you for your comments. Next speaker is Councillor Purser. Bob, over to you, after which we've got Councillor Randall. Bob, welcome.
Yes, I would also like to thank the Task and Finish group for their work. Councillor Roberts would have been here this evening, but she has a family health emergency, so she's necessarily away from us. I think scrutiny, we're still getting this right, and scrutiny is not about self-congratulations. It's about taking an issue and looking at it and giving it a hard look, and challenging ourselves where things are not working. And that's the task we've got to look at here. I think residents want to know, as a result of this piece of work, is it going to make any difference? How is it going to make their concerns, like riding on pavements, like 2 riders on a scooter, lack of helmets, how is it going to change that? That's what people want to know, and they want to see whether the Cabinet, from this piece of work, are going to achieve a significant change in the way we experience these scooters on our streets. People are not confident that complaints are effectively dealt with, and they want to be reassured that that is really working. The reason this was brought to council was that certain parts of the trial were causing danger and stress to local residents. It felt that as a council, West Northants was not taking sufficient action to ensure the rules were being enforced. So that's why this has come before us, and we're wanting to see that it's actually going to change. So we see the targets that have been set in this report, and that the Cabinet has accepted this timetable of actions. So I think that the Cabinet, the Cabinet member still has a lot to do at the May and June meeting to assure us that he's on top of this issue and that action is going to result from this piece of work.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob. Councillor Randall, Wendy.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. As you know, this review came on the back of a motion that was submitted by Councillor Roberts. The task and finish panel was very rushed through, and I feel what's come out of this could potentially be very weak. I was surprised to see that the political assistant to the Conservative group was involved in the public survey. Is that something that's normally done? I'm sure Josh would have liked some input if we were having political assistants involved in a survey. You know, and I was also quite surprised that in the first instance that Councillor Nunn was quoted as an expert just because he was a user. You know, does that create a biased opinion? If it was me, I wouldn't have spoken. You know, I would have want actually members of the public, not councillors, to give their opinion. The main concerns that come about from that from the survey was tandem riding, riding on pavement, underage users and parking dangerously. Today, coming back from Northampton earlier on today, I saw tandem riding, riding on the pavement, underage users and parking dangerously straight across the pavement at a pedestrian crossing. So, you know, I've note that this will come back in May. And I hope that all of these issues that have been raised will be taken into account before any extension to the trial continues, because we cannot continue with this like it is. You know, we've had some serious accidents happen, and you know, we've got to get this right. If this continues now, we really must get this right, and this is an opportunity to do that. So I am pleading with you to please take note of all those responses in that survey, and you know, really look hard at that, because you know, there's going to be more accidents coming once the summer months come. I mean, I don't know how these underage users, you know, get on these scooters, because they're obviously using somebody else's driving license, but they've got school uniform on, you know, they're clearly underage users. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Wendy. Phil may come in a moment, but reference councillors. Councillors are members of the public. I know we like to treat them as though they're second grade to members of the public. We are members of the public. We use the services like any other. I didn't put myself forward to be involved in this, and it's a shame that you think that your council should be heavily involved and I should have no involvement. When Alison, the chair of this, said to Voy, we'd like to know some users. They said, well, speak to Jonathan. He's a user. Why don't you at least speak with him? So that's how I came about. I made no approach to be a part of it. Once again, I don't claim to be an expert, but I would say that I've endeavoured to solve all of the major problems that we've had so far, and we'll keep going. Enforcement is still an issue, and I saw the photos that the resident had sent Councillor Roberts, and it didn't seem at that point that Voy had followed them up, because they had captured what the registration number was there. So we'll continue sitting on that. We'll make sure that they do follow them up, because this is something that we've got to solve. And what I can't quite establish is, with all the talk of air pollution, and the council must do something about air pollution, and all of the people who use it to get to work, who perhaps can't afford motor cars and don't want to pollute the place, I haven't quite understood if it would be the Labour Party's view that if they were in charge of the council, they would cancel the scheme. I know there'll be a lot of concerned people who might think that, but you have an opportunity to be clear about that, if that's what you think should be the way ahead. Phil, did you want to come in and make any of the comments?
I was just going to say, Chair, I totally agree with Sally Beers when she said it's not the scooters, it's the riders. Yes. Absolutely. The scooters do a great job, very environmentally friendly, and I think they're really worthwhile. But it's unfortunately the idiots that ride them, not the majority, but the minority, and that's what we're dealing with, like it is with most things when it comes to road traffic offences, etc. I think that all the issues that has been raised by councillors tonight have been addressed by the scrutiny committee, and they are referred to in the report. What we've got to do now is go away and look at those recommendations, look at what Voy have said that they can do. They have said that they've got technology which will enable them to identify people double riding. We need to ensure that the better number plates on these scooters that are easily to photograph, so that people can collect evidence. We need to make sure that on the fraud issue, where people are putting in driving licenses for kids to read, something happens there, because it's not just banning the kids when they're caught riding them on somebody's license. I think we need to make representations to government to endorse the license of people who are allowing their license to be used. So that's another thing. But, you know, we've been told, and Voi were very open and said, there's technology available. We, I think, have got to put in, if we're going to go ahead and allow the scheme to continue, we've got to put in timelines in order for them to come up with the technology. If they haven't come up with the technology and installed it on all scooters in 6 months, say, for ensuring there's no more than one person riding a scooter, that's it, they're out. We've really got to be tight on getting these things, because it's been said, this is all for the residents. The scooters are great for the users, they're great for the environment, but there's a hell of a lot of people who don't use them and a hell of a lot of people who are affected by them. And that's who we've got to take into account in coming up with this agreement to go forward, making sure that all the concerns are addressed as they say they can be concerned, and let's get that into the agreement going forward. Thank you, Chair.
Just a query for me. Just still wondering, what Councillor Randall was talking about there with the Conservative group political assistant being involved. I mean, and members of the public, just like anybody else, there was the involvement of our comms team. Can anybody clarify that? Becky, are you able to comment on that still? Thank you.
Yes, the survey was put together by members of the communications team who worked with Stuart and Nick's teams to work on the questions.
And no particular use of our political assistant to the exclusion of the Labour Party's political assistant or anything like that. I just don't know. Have I misunderstood what you were saying, Wendy, there? Let's take a moment just to find that. Let us know where you're just to be. Yes. Oh, is there? There's an Elijah. Oh. Oh, okay. Yes, you're right. Yeah, yeah. Okay. No, thank you. I've seen that. No, don't know really. Don't know. Mainly it was your team, Becky, wasn't it? Yeah, yeah. Sorry. Okay. Thank you. Yeah, yeah. Sorry, Andre, were you going to comment on that?
Yeah, with that help, just to indicate that the political assistant was originally helping in terms of motivating people to complete a scheme effectively, and in terms of the survey, this was obviously, so her encouragement of having a survey, that's all it was. Our comms team obviously did put together the survey. Just a helpful point there also on tandem riding that was brought up. There's no legal position on tandem riding other than the fact that that can come through. The current situation in terms of scooters nationally is it's a trial, and the trial's been extended by government, but there is no road regulation that does not permit tandem riding. Obviously, if we choose to have that, and I think it's a good restriction that we should place for various different reasons, then obviously that is a Northamptonshire or West Northamptonshire in terms of this particular element restriction that we would be placing, but it is not a legal road user restriction at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you. That's helpful. I mean, let's just clarify that. Then let's just make sure if we've some involvement, political assistance, that we got both involved. That's just something we're agreeing here, isn't it? Thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely, and
Yeah.
all political assistants, as the same way that all councillors were invited
Yeah.
to take part, and it's up to them, obviously, if they wish to do so or not. And in fact, we do thank all of those councillors who take part, and certainly encourage your communities to sort those things through theirs.
Brilliant.
Can I just add one thing to this? I was really impressed by the presence of Voi and the way they are determined to get behind this and work with us.
Yeah.
I think that if you set the bar high, they will meet it. They want to meet it. This particular company, right at the beginning of the survey, well, not the survey, right at the beginning of when scooters came into our lives, there were 11 companies in this country. Voi handle 7 townships. There's another company that handle 4, and the rest of them do 1. And I think that if we're going to work on this in the future, we need to have the best, and they are the best of the bunch. Bath and Bristol decided to change out their carrier when their contract came up, which it does with us in May. And they switched to another carrier, and they are bitterly disappointed. And they would like to return to Voi, but at this moment they can't. They're in contract to somebody else. So I think the willingness of this Swedish company to stand behind their product is a very key issue in it getting it right. And after all, if we go back in the 1890s, there was a red flag and a man who walked ahead of it. It didn't work on the instant, and nor indeed will this. I'm sure we'll iron it out. And the interesting thing to me is it's a very small group of people that make the rotten egg for the rest.
Thank you. Thank you, Alison. And thank you, Andre, again. Thanks, everybody. That's
Thank you,
good
Steve.
debate. Thank you. If I may now, I think we'll direct our attention to the recommendations. We're not voting on the specific recommendations made by the committee, although we've already demonstrated huge agreement towards those. The recommendations in section 3 is that we note and consider the recommendations that the Overview and Scrutiny Committee are making regarding the trial. If I can just ask you to signal your agreement, is that agreed? Thank you. Which takes us on to item 7, and this is the corporate plan quarterly performance report. This takes us up to Q3 for most of the figures that are included, which of course is the end of December. We know that we've changed some of these to be more relevant to the council's own performance. We've also had some government changes in the way that they collect data and report on different things. So there have been some changes to performance indicators. I might just highlight a few, and I know that cabinet members will want to expand a little on some of those explanations. Once we've then done that, we've got 3 councillor speakers on this, which is councillors Humphreys, Purser and Randall. So just to quickly spin through a few highlights, I think we'll want to say more on some of the waste sent for reuse and recycling and so on, but it's fairly consistent across the year with some shifts in household recycling habits. The measure is reported in arrears due to reporting process and data flow. Therefore, we're only showing Q2 on that. We're still that further quarter behind. Upward trend on fixed penalty notices issued for environmental crime, which I hope is a positive thing. Whilst we're seeing a lot of it out there, I'm hoping that means that we're more active in issuing penalties. Electric vehicle charging points, it's quite positive to see an increase in those. Many of us would still want more, and to see visitors to leisure centres in a pretty healthy position too. I think Matt will want to say more, but we've got on carers assessments completed and Care Act reviews completed in the past 12 months. I know that Matt wants to comment a little bit more on that. But older people who are still in their home 91 days after discharge from hospital into re-ablement and rehabilitation services. I mean, this looks to me like good news at 87% against a target of 81, 82. And I think it's good that they're both staying out of hospital, but also that we are doing more to enable them to live in their own homes. That's got to be the way forward, hasn't it? I know that on the proportion of cases where homelessness was prevented or was homeless was successfully relieved, Adam will want to say a little bit more on that, on those figures, as we're a little way down from target, but there is work going on there. What's good to see is on the disabled facilities grants, we're catching up from that time in COVID where none of that work could be done. And that money that's had built up is being spent, and above all, is making a contribution to people being able to live independent lives again in their own homes. Again, Fiona might comment a little bit more on EHCPs. These figures need to improve. We know that that's an area where we need to see improvement. There is also a consideration that on some of them, information is required from other partner organisations. It's not all down to us, but we know there's a lot more to do there. The number of EHCPs, education and healthcare plans, continues to rise. It's an increase of 402. That's 13% from the same point last year. So we see more and more young people coming forward for this type of assessment, and increasing constant demand. Number of initial contacts with the MASH, the Multi-Agency Safeguarding Hub. These figures always scare me somewhat. In West Northants, we have 101,000 residents between 0 and 19 years. 101,000 residents. So when you see 12,330, that's 12.3%. Okay, many of them will be duplicated referrals of the same child, of course, won't they? But that's actually 12.3% of our children in a quarter are referred. That just, I think there's a lot to reflect on there. There's a little bit more detail behind it. Again, it might be something that Fiona wants to add. A little bit more detail on reduction children on a child protection plan. That has to be positive. Children supported by early help in the Children's Trust. We've seen a sustained increase across that, which I think is good, with the determination that we all have on early help and prevention. An increase in the number of children who are classed as children in need as well from the last quarter. So many of these figures do continue to climb. Phil will say more, I'm sure, on the defects responded within timeframes. And I know there is criticism that those timeframes are too long, but nevertheless, against the criteria set, they're performing well. And of course, I think it was the last time we looked at these figures, we were down at 77% spend on maintenance, which indicated that work wasn't being done. It's not profiled equally across the year, was our point. And sure enough, we are now at 108% of budget. It's worth stressing that we have not overspent by 8%, but if you take the 9/12 of the year so far, we've spent beyond month 9. So in other words, a lot of work is going on. That's the point there. That's not an overspend. That's just that we're ahead of the 9/10 profile. Good news on customer services, might say more. 96.6% of customers are quite or extremely satisfied with the service from the customer service team. So, that sounds to me to be pretty good news, really. Planning applications, Rebecca's not here this evening, so let's just pause and say that we are seeing terrific improvement on planning. And we know there's been huge concern here. It's good performance, and what I'm experiencing, and the figures bear out, is that the validations now are happening a great deal more quickly. Any one of us as ward councillors will suddenly have seen a lot of those coming into our inbox. Massive catching up exercise. And that's been the next bit of the process to address. Application times have improved. The validations having now improved, we're really starting to get somewhere on that. And that's partly as a result of something like half a dozen new staff joining again in the last 2 or 3 months, which means we're properly staffed up to do this. It's quite a bit of narrative on the thriving villages and towns. Obviously, we finalised the concept of the Northamptonshire tourism strategy during that relevant quarter. That's now been to Cabinet and it's been approved, celebrating Small Business Saturday. We've got the Think Local social media marketing campaign going on. And Dan might want to say a bit more about the economic development stuff, but clearly at WNC, an increase in the number of apprentices is good news. We all support apprentices. Chief Executive's Office has actually got a work experience person in this week as well, who we've invited along to a couple of meetings with us. So I think that's a really important part of our culture. We obviously are taking over the hosting of the LEP services. I think I've spoken about this at Cabinet before, certainly in other places. Economic development, the Growth Hub, which obviously encourages young businesses, particularly Careers Hub, which puts schools in touch with companies so that we can create world-class work experience opportunities. These are really important services. They're coming back to under the supervision and the running of democratically elected local authorities. That's happening nationwide. We've put our hand up to host, and we will be hosting the services of SEMLEP, and that's proving a very busy thing to do to get that done by the end of this month, but we're getting there, and we're determined that these services will continue and offer the support, not just to our own businesses, but across the whole of the Southeast Midlands. Budget, we've probably talked about budget quite a lot recently, so Malcolm might not add more. At that time, we were £3.49 million was our projected overspend. We're working to keep it to that sort of level or reduce it slightly further. Other things on the robust resource management, housing benefit and council tax reduction service, average days to determine a new application. Still got a long way to go, but these are moving in the right direction, as is the housing benefit and the council tax reduction scheme, average days to determine a change in circumstances. Rolling annual staff turnover as well. We've talked before about this and the importance to us of creating a culture. The LGA peer review team were in last week, as you may know, their report to follow. But one thing that they reported was a very positive culture at West Northants. And I think that's reflected in a 10.3% annual staff turnover figure, which, as far as I'm concerned, is a pretty low figure. Those are main points from me. I don't know, do any cabinet members want to follow up with key things? Did you want to say, Adam, on any of your things, first of all?
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. As advised at the last cabinet meeting, there's still issues around the prevention and relief side of homelessness within the department. This is largely due to the demand pressures. It pushes down the percentages, but those figures shouldn't be interpreted as people ending up rough sleeping or anything of the sort. They're both proactive measures. In a large number of those cases, people go on to find alternative provision outside of the council.
Right.
So the figures can be misleading on that front. I direct members' attentions to the narrative below the statistics, which outlines the steps being taken to bring those figures back in line with target. We've now made the last offer of a position within communities and within the housing team to fill the key vacancy within the department. So come the summer, we should be up to absolutely full operating strength and ready to get going and tackle all of the outstanding challenges. On a brighter note, just bring members' attention to the house building statistics further on in the report. So 80 new council homes built in the last period and 179 affordable homes completed across the district, both ahead of those particular targets for the period, which is good news. Figures like that will help us to provide for people across the district. And other good news within my portfolio is that library and museum visitor numbers still remain strong.
Brilliant. Yeah, thank you, Adam. Matt, you wanted to come in there, I think.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just a couple of points that you sort of covered off a little bit there. Around people who are still at home 91 days after discharge from hospital. We've got some good performance around that, supported by our rehabilitation services who are now fully staffed after a service redesign, excuse me. So that's positive. Care home placements, we continue to focus on keeping people at home and in their communities as long as possible. So our performance on the number of people placed in care home settings remains around our performance targets, which is good. Care Act assessments and carers assessments, both these areas underreported for this quarter due to data issues. We have in the service that is being said, we normally see a level of reduction in this area due to the Christmas period. Care Act reviews will remain on a positive trajectory for completion of Care Act reviews, and this is a priority for us in preparation for the CQC assurances. So there's some positives and some challenges that the service is responding to there. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. That's helpful. Fiona, you're going to comment on a couple of. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, first of all, just to mention the MASH, I'm told by colleagues up and down the country who are in the same position as I am, that it's quite normal for you to have high MASH numbers when you've had a service that's been Ofsted inadequate in the past, because people, and you've had difficult, issues with children where they've been very badly damaged. This is because of nervousness on the behalf of schools, etc. So they report everything rather than use any sort of levels of decision making. So they all report into the MASH, which is one of the reasons why we want to get our early help offer off the ground, because all those young people that go through the MASH system that come out the other side with no answers and nothing to be gone further need some help, because obviously there was a reason why they were referred in the first place. And those are the people we need to get to with our early help offer, because in a year's time, they may be in need of more help than they're having at the beginning. So it is a concern, but I'm assured it's quite a normal situation. I just wanted, if you can indulge me for a minute, Chairman, to give you a bit of an update on the SEND situation. I'd like to comment on the indicators around EHCPs, which is educational healthcare plans. In particular, as you're all aware, last Monday we received the call from Ofsted to commence our SEND inspection. The inspection will look at our SEND partnership using Ofsted's new inspection framework. This is looking at our service, health service, and the Children's Trust. So 3 different organisations for data collection. The data in this scorecard will contribute to Ofsted's consideration on the effectiveness of our services. When you look at the timeliness of our EHCPs at 4.1% and 5.6%, it's very clear we have much more work to do. The number of requests for EHCP is increasing each quarter alongside the total number of plans that are in place. EHCP timeliness is dependent on educational psychologist input, which is subject to a national shortage of qualified staff. We've put in just under £500,000 worth of short-term additional capacity to get through our backlog. These people are in place and working in our building at the moment. This additional capacity has started and will clear the backlog over the next 6 months. However, until the backlog is cleared, the timeliness will not significantly improve. We are able to convey to Ofsted that we have mobilised significant interventions to improve our support to children and their families, including the new Tierfield Special School, which has its groundbreaking ceremony on Friday, additional SEND units added to existing schools, relaunched our SEND partnership, co-produced our SEND strategy, focused on our parent carer forum, additional educational psychologists. We'll also be taking forward a restructure of our service over the next few months, which will increase our capacity to manage the additional demand we are seeing. This, however, we realise doesn't materially change the experience of children over the last few years. We can see some improvement emerging. The annual review figure, for example, is on a really positive trajectory. However, the interventions I've mentioned will take over 2 years to really improve our support and performance around SEND. We remain absolutely committed to getting this exactly right. The staff team is under enormous pressure at the moment due to both service demands and Ofsted, and I ask for your kindness and support over the coming months to enable us to maintain our improved trajectory. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Fiona. Any other comments at all? Phil, was there anything on yours that you wanted to comment on, or any your performance indicators you wanted to comment on?
Just to say, Chair, the on the priority 1, the first 2 performance indicators there, the measure is actually for the Q2 as opposed to other measures that are for Q3. And I think it's, while they're slightly down, we are very much on course to improve on previous years and be above the national average. While residual waste treated is down, in actual fact on last year, it's actually up on the same period, and we remain on target to hit the levels we hit last year. So all in all, a very good performance, despite being slightly down. And I think you've got to remember that these are Q2, July to September, not the biggest months of the year. People away, etc., less waste. You know, it's all relative, but it's the end of the day. It's the score over the whole year that's important. And number of fly tips cleared. I think it's very pleasing that we're down quite significantly on the previous period, Q2. Hopefully that means there's less fly tipping, because we're also down on the numbers cleared during the year to date. So, you know, hopefully we are actually getting to the stage where we're having an impact on reducing the number of fly tips. But I expect that to transpire and become more clear as we progress throughout the year. But let's hope that that trajectory is right. Just on the defects on highways. Okay, the defects responded to priority 1 and 2. Yes, in Q2 we scored 100%. We're now scoring 98.3 on priorities 1 or 2. I mean, we know the importance of these potholes. We know they're a major concern to our residents. But I think if you split the quarter down, in October we achieved 100%, 97.2 in November and 97.7 in December. But I think we need to remember, Chairman, that the weather changed in November. We started having more ice and more freezing temperatures that actually caused more damage to the roads. At the end of the day, within these priorities, we're talking about 115 repairs. So it's not that many in overall numbers that didn't get treated. With regard to priority 3 and 4, you know, we're above target. Our target is 90%, and we're consistently hitting about 98%, which is really, really good. I think that balances out as well. And in November, we actually achieved 99.1% in delivering on those. But there are far more of those repairs than there are any others. There's 4,780 repairs were made over the quarter. And I think it's fair to say that they're performing well, above targets in some interest in some respects. So, you know, we've also got the oversight group, scrutiny oversight group, that looks at these key KPIs, and they're not flagging up any issues. So I think, you know, we're progressing, we're making progress. We know there's a lot more to do. We know there's a lot of attention needed to our roads, not just our roads, but our footpaths as well. And, you know, we do need to pick up and move on and get these works undertaken. I think the pleasing to see that we're spending 108% of routine maintenance budget, correcting the deficit that we had in the previous quarter. I think it was about 80%. So we're back on the proper trajectory, and hopefully that will continue. And I think as you drive around West Northamptonshire and see all the works that are being undertaken, we are going to be on target to spend all that money.
Thank you, Phil. That's helpful. Anybody else, any other comments from Cabinet members? If not, we'll move on. We've got 3 speakers here. First is Councillor Rosie Humphries. Then we've got Councillor Purser and Councillor Randall. Rosie, over to you.
Good evening. Thank you. On this report, which I thank everyone who's been involved in compiling it. Obviously, there are a lot of welcome improvements, which Councillor Nunn, and many of which Councillor Nunn has referred to. Increased use of leisure centres, increased number of elderly people staying out of hospital, a decrease in children on a child protection plan, a sustained increase in early help prevention, an increase in fixed penalty notices for environmental crimes. But there is some worrying evidence of weaker performance in the number, for example, of care assessments carried out and prevention of homelessness. Only 10%, which really is extremely concerning. And when you contrast it with the homelessness prevention of Ukrainian households, which is 63.5%, I don't quite see how that is so much higher when presumably a lot of homeless prevention is mediation of families who can no longer accommodate family members. Turning to EHCPs, which Councillor Baker has told us about, why is our request for those, I'd like to know, above the national average, and why do we have no targets related to their completion? And although it's welcome that there is extra staff temporarily employed to address the backlog, is it really the case that it's going to take 2 years to complete that, which is, to my mind, utterly unacceptable? Councillor Baker is aware of a very difficult case in my ward of a young child with a serious non-nutritive eating disorder, and her assessment's well over the statutory limit, and her family really are absolutely desperate. Two comments on highways. While the maintenance targets are above target, the perception of residents, I have to say, is the contract's not on top of the job, and the potholes are getting worse and worse. In Crick, Keir's reputation is at a particular low ebb as a traffic calming chicane installed with a 20,000 contribution from the parish councils had to go back to the contractor's design team as it's not fit for purpose. Councillor Larratt has visited himself to see what's gone on, and I would ask whether the scrutiny group will examine any design KPIs that are attached to the contract, because it's gone seriously wrong there. Just on planning applications, can someone clarify whether the timescales include the validation? You've mentioned that validation times are improving, but it was 6 weeks at some point, and I've had no update on that. Because if it doesn't include validation, those statistics don't really mean very much. And there are still applications which are well overdue. There's a planning application in my ward which is over 3 years since inception, and still no sight of a determination. On staff sickness, it's very concerning that the increase of staff sickness is from 4.52 to 7.32 in the last quarter. I do note in the later agenda item on the strategic risk register that recruitment and capacity of staff is red rated, which I'm sure we'll get perhaps more information on, or will at the Audit and Governance Committee, which I'm a member. But these statistics bear no indication that it's that high on the risk register. Just going back to EHCPs, I think it would be very meaningful for members to know the number on the backlog, and whether realistically it will be 2 years before it's cleared or months, as has also been indicated. Finally, just on the data on falls, I know the full data is not available, and it talks about a decrease, but I did happen to notice in a report from the Health and Wellbeing Board that the number of falls, which I think must be an annual figure, was 2,598, and that was a higher figure than nationally, which was 2,100. So that is of concern. Thank you.
Thanks, Rosie. Quite a lot in there. Does anybody want to respond to any of those points? Adam, you're going to comment on some?
Yeah, only on the discrepancy between the homelessness relief for Ukrainians and the general population. I think it's purely down to the fact that we're dealing with far smaller numbers for the Ukrainian families, and largely the reduced percentages are down to the level of demand. So that's the key difference there. We wouldn't be, treating the general population unfairly compared to Ukrainian families, although I don't know if Jane has anything else to add to that.
Sorry, just to add, there's another element with the Ukrainian families, which is actually easier to relieve it because you've got the sponsor relationship. So it's more about mediating with a sponsor or finding an alternative sponsor. So it's easier to relieve or prevent than would be general household. Yeah.
Thank you, Jane. Anna, you're going to make comments?
Yes, sorry, it was just on the recruitment point. Whilst you're correct that the risk register talks to the inherent risk, i.e. the risk before mitigation is red, after mitigations it's not red, it's amber. All authorities are facing that. But what I would say is our recruitment campaigns are being really successful at the moment in terms of the number of people who are coming into them and our success rate at appointing people. So I actually, in terms of the risk and the treatment of that risk, it's much better. On the staff sickness, there's just one thing to say. Obviously, one of the challenges you've always got with quarterly type figures is our general rate is much lower. Is of course, if you get somebody with long-term sickness, it will create an effect overall in the quarter. But I think our trend's still very good and our turnover is very good, as the leaders pointed out. So just some reassurance there.
Thanks, Anna. Mike, you going to add to that?
Yeah, thanks on that. The outturn for the EU, obviously we track over a 12-month period, so the number of days grows. So it might be at 1 in January, 2 in February, so on and so forth. The outturn last year at the end of the year was 11.88 days per employee. This year, the projected outturn is 9.76 days. So that trend is in exactly the right direction.
Thanks, Mike. That's helpful. Fiona. Very good. You've been nominated, Stuart.
Thank you. So the first one in relation to the volume of demand we're seeing around EHCPs, and that being above the England average. I wish I had the magical understanding as to why we're seeing more children present with a level of disability come through this, whether this is results as a result of increases in mental health in children, whether it's associated with a bounce back from COVID. We're not sure. There isn't a magic solution around that, and it's something that's playing out on a national basis. In relation to the kind of 2 years that we described around mobilising our improvement, it's not just about the backlog. The special school, for example, will open its doors in September 2025. That will mean that we have significantly more capacity locally to prevent children being placed out of area. So when you look at that 2-year period, it's about mobilising all of those different things that Councillor Baker set out. 6 months.
Thank you, Stuart. Matt.
Yeah, I was just going to mention, Councillor Humphreys mentioned the care assessments and the lower data, and it does acknowledge in there that there's some data issues there, and that should be corrected in the next quarter report. But also the falls as well, that is noted as a system priority given the numbers and that we are dealing with. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments at all? No, Rosie?
I was just going to mention the chicane in Crick. Yes, we did go out and have a look at it. There is work to be done. We recognise there's work to be done. Why a curb wasn't put in when the chicane, which is, I think, a great structure and very fit for purpose. Why on earth a curb wasn't put in, I don't know, but hopefully we're going to rectify that as soon as practically possible. Very soon, I hope, because it's churning up the grass verge. Looks a complete and utter mess, and I think it's dangerous as well. So we do need to get on with that.
Good. Thank you, Rosie. Thanks, Phil. Next speaker then is Councillor Purser. Bob, welcome.
Thank you, Chair. Lots of information in here, some of which probably needs unpicking in a different forum from here. So I think we need to think about how we use scrutiny to look at some of the areas where some of the data is kind of complex. Example of that, I think, is the fly tipping fixed penalty notice issue, because certainly our residents' perception is that things have been particularly bad in this this is the pre-Christmas period, isn't it? But certainly post-Christmas, this is where it all gets very difficult. The perception and the data, how do they tie up? So I think that there's a task to be done beyond this meeting. So that's my kind of general point, that maybe we need to use scrutiny intelligently here. Housing, excellent news that we've got. If only we could have 80 houses next quarter as well, but we won't, sadly. But we can still dream. And one of the issues about affordable housing is how affordable is it to the people in the most acute housing need. So that is a continuing challenge for us. The museum, I just think we've had some excellent exhibitions over the punk exhibition, superb exhibition. Looking forward to the Vivienne Westwood exhibition, because I think that's going to be a cracker as well. And I think we've really got to get the word out into the whole of West Northants that the museum is a place to visit and is a real destination now. I'm concerned that the redundancies will have an impact on these exhibitions. I really hope it doesn't. And if we're meeting our performance indicators, why are we losing staff? Surely that's where we need to invest. Right, then the questions. Why are we having more complaints upheld in this last quarter? Is that a blip or is that a trend? And this issue of the housing prevention, we've got a target of 40%. Last quarter was 20%, and we're down at something's going strange is happening there. So that would be useful for, and whether the housing strategy will change up, whether the reorganisation. We just need to understand what's going on there, and we need to be doing 10% suggests that something not very good is going on. And then finally, back to highways, I kind of struggle to get how the indicators that we see here relate to the performance of the key performance indicators that we hear on the contract monitoring. I don't understand how those relate. So perhaps that's a task for us to understand better. I do note that the road from Road to Blisworth this evening was very smooth and has been resurfaced. Excellent. Compare that with a Billing Road, which is like a farmer's track, really. Probably disservice to farmers and their tracks, but anyway, it's not sure how we prioritise our road improvements.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Did anybody want to comment briefly? Adam, you're going to come in there.
Yeah, just very briefly, on the museum restructure, the consultation is still open until the end of this week, so the final outcome of that will be known shortly. But what I would say is that we're confident that we can run as good a service for less. What we inherited was effectively a borough council structure. There weren't the same economies of scale and the ability to take on some of the roles within NBC that there are now at WNC. So that's the premise of the restructure. We think we could be more efficient. We can offer better value to the taxpayer, and that's what it should always be about.
Thank you. Any other comments at all? Phil?
Thank you, Chair. I hear what is said between the correlation between the key KPIs and the measurements here, and we'll get that addressed when within the oversight group so that everybody has an understanding of how that works. The Billing Road, it's by no means the worst. I mean, I've been out and about this week and there are some really bad roads. Unfortunately, the weather has had significant impact. We are on catch up. We've done some work on Billing Road. I was down there the other day when they were actually filling some potholes, but we've got a lot to do, and we are doing our best. And the teams are out as much and as often as they can be with all the best equipment that we've now got to do a better and proper lasting job. But yes, we've got a backlog. The weather just has not helped at all. The weather we had in November, December, when it froze, it caused all sorts of problems. Now we're trying to catch up with that. But please don't quote Billing Road because there are worse. I'm happy to take your turn, Bob.
Mike, thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much. Councillor Percy, your question on my one on complaints upheld. This is a great advert for why councillors should go digital and not have just paper notes in front of you. Because if you saw this chart here, you'll see that actually the blip is in Q2. So the blip is a positive blip in that Q2 was exceptionally good, and all of the detail written here explains it as well. But actually, it's at a very similar level to Q1. So what we had was some really good performance in Q2. So a great advert for having that, for having it in front of you on a laptop.
Brilliant. Thank you, Bob. That was really helpful. Thank you. Finally, Councillor Randall. Wendy, over to you.
Thank you, Chair. On clean and green, can I request that we have or look at having an extra indicator for waste to landfill? Because I find it really hard to do that measure without knowing that. You know, I just find that would be really useful. Fixed penalty notices have increased this quarter, but I wondered if the contract that we have for the town centre enforcement firm, are these included in these figures? And if they are, can they be separated? Because even though we've got that firm doing enforcement in the town centre, I don't see the town centre getting any cleaner. Improve life chances. So prevention of homelessness target is 40%, and this quarter we've only managed 10.2, which seems really poor. When the homeless strategy is in place, do we expect to see these figures reaching nearer that target? Obviously, EHCPs have been mentioned. You know, there was a drop even further. And at the last cabinet meeting, we was hoping to see an improvement because we had got, you know, that extra staffing. So as only 4.1% of EHCPs are being completed within the legal time frame, how long are the other 95.9% of EHCPs waiting before they're completed? Connected communities, so roads. I was really surprised with the figures of the defects responded to within the timeframes. Nearly every day I hear of somebody's car that has been damaged by a pothole. The roads in Daventry are the worst that I've ever known. My understanding is that it's the council's responsibility to maintain the roads that aren't the responsibility of national highways, so that if a car is damaged, why are claims being rejected? Can you please make it clear on the website what information is needed to progress a claim? Many of these repairs are a temporary repair, and I've come across the police twice now having to park their vehicle across the top of a pothole while they've called the emergency team to come and repair it. And they come with their bag of tarmac, just stick it in the hole, whack a plate it, and then just go. There's no sealing of that tarmac to the road. The one that caused an issue a fortnight ago, where the police was on site, he said 4 cars had gone through this pothole on the way to Norton. It had taken out the tyres of 4 cars. It was on a blind bend. He come across and parked his, his police car over the top. Why he helped the others, change their tyres. So, you've got police time being used up there as well. But he said when they come out, they said, oh, I put a temporary repair in there about 4 or 5 months ago. So my question is, are these figures just temporary repairs or, and in Daventry, a lot of the time, all I'm seeing is a temporary repair and then it becoming not being done properly and then another temporary repair. So I've got quite a few. Coming back from Northampton today, I know yesterday they must have come out and repaired some leading from Norton to Daventry, but it's like hit or miss. They've done that one, they've missed that one, they've done that one, they've missed that one. And these are all deep potholes. So you're just continuously driving around trying to swerve, which is fine in the daylight, but at night when it's been raining, it's really, really difficult. So, that my concern is the amount of money that residents are forking out to repair their cars now. Thriving towns and villages. So, I noted as Councillor Purser did that museums were slightly down, but overall they're 12,000 above target, which I thought was fantastic to see that. I've visited that museum many times now. I love going in there and felt it was an awful shame, that when I heard that the decision had been made to descale down on specialist staff. And I really, really hope that we won't see our brilliant museum go in a downward spiral because of that decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Some comments? Adam, do you want to come in there?
Yeah, just on going back to the homelessness figures, we're not waiting for the strategy to be adopted here tonight. The work's very much underway. I've had many conversations with the team about the background to this issue and how we move forward on it. And happy to say that we've got an incredibly able new head of homelessness and housing solutions who's got a proven track record from her previous council in getting to grips with precisely this sort of issue. So we can be optimistic that with the restructure and with the strategy coming forward, work is already underway and will accelerate further over the next few months. I think I've made my feelings over the museum fairly clear, but it seems to continue to be an alien concept to the Labour Party that actually you can do more with less. The museum will continue to be a fantastic venue. It will continue to be a massive draw for Northampton Town Centre. So it has our full backing, but we're in a position to provide greater efficiencies and we owe it to our taxpayers to do so.
Thank you. Thank you, Adam. Fiona, some comments from you?
Thank you. I don't have the exact number of how many we've got in our backlog at the moment, but I do know that our new team are starting with those who are waiting longest first. So they will be working through those very diligently. The issue that we've had, as we've mentioned many times, is an inability to recruit educational psychologists. Excuse me. This is an issue for the whole country. I go to a group of all the lead members on a monthly basis and they all tell me the same. They can't get the educational psychologists and therefore we can't complete the applications. We now have a specialist team who are in doing that particular work for us. So we will see rapidly those numbers coming down and in 6 months we will be up to date with all of those plans. Thank you.
Thank you, Fiona. Any further comments at all?
Yes, Chair. On the FPNs, I believe that includes both our FPNs issued and from our contractor. But if that's different, we'll come back to you, Councillor Rendell.
Good. Thank you. Any other comments?
Yes.
Sorry, Phil. Just stick
Sorry,
your hands up.
sorry,
So I
Chair,
can
yeah.
see.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked a lot about potholes and pothole repair times and everything tonight. Yes, I mean, we do undertake temporary repairs. The priority is to get the hole filled as quickly and as soon as possible so that people don't incur further problems or any danger. Now, it depends when we can go back and do a permanent job. Does it require a road closure? Have we got to take into account all the diversion routes? It can be very difficult to actually set up a repair. So it may last a day, It may be done properly within a day, it might be a week, but the priority is to get it get it filled and get it safe. And I think, you know, when it comes to priorities, priority 1, 24 hours, priority 2, 7 days, where in actual fact, in practice, the priority 2 are filled within 2 to 3 days. So we're clearly out exceeding performance there. I think, Chair, there's a lot of lack of understanding as to how a highways team work, how potholes are filled, how they're prioritised, etc., etc. And I've discussed it with Stuart Timmis, and we think that we've had very successful member events where we've discussed waste and things like that. So we're going to be holding a member event in not too distant future to look at how we deal with road repairs, how they're classified, how they're filled, and it will not just be people from West Northampton Council. We will have our contractors there as well. So we will actually have that session in the fairly near future, which I hope everybody will attend in order that they don't get confused in the future.
Good. All done. Yep, fantastic. Thank you. Okay, so we're asked to note the report in the recommendations. Can you just ask you to confirm your agreement? Is that agreed? Thank you very much. Takes us on to item 8. This is homelessness and rough sleeping strategy. This one is with Adam. Once Adam's introduced it, 3 speakers, councillors Beardsworth, Purser and Randall. Adam, over to you.
Thank you, Chairman. So the report in front of us tonight is to adopt the new homelessness and rough sleeping strategy for West Northamptonshire Council. The Homelessness Act 2002 requires local authorities to have a homelessness strategy. That's a legal duty. And the Local Government Structural Changes Transitional Arrangements Regulation 2008 requires us to have a homelessness and rough sleeping strategy by April of this year. Thus, we are tonight meeting our statutory obligations, and in May we'll bring forward further details regarding the delivery of the strategy via a detailed delivery plan. But I hope we'd all agree that the prevention and relief of homelessness and rough sleeping is more than a legal duty. It's a moral obligation. And I confront the moral nature of this work directly in the foreword of the strategy, where I state that homelessness in this day and age is a tragic reflection of the fragility of society and the failure of systems underpinning society. Basically, we just have to find a way to do better and prevent people from being homeless or facing a life on the streets. And I believe that this strategy both recognises that objective and is a significant step towards achieving it. The strength of the strategy comes through its co-production over a number of months with key stakeholders, too numerous to mention, and that sense of co-ownership and partnership working will be fostered over the lifetime of the strategy. We'll check in with them on an annual basis to update them on progress, and we'll take their feedback over the next 3 years. The strategy has 4 key themes: improve collaborative partnerships to make homelessness everyone's business, early intervention and prevention of homelessness, increase provision and access to suitable and sustainable settled housing solutions, and ensure that where rough sleeping occurs, it is rare, brief, and non-recurring. Each of the 4 themes is underpinned by an explanation of the key data justifying it and clear descriptions of the activity WNC aims to undertake to deliver on our objectives. May's delivery plan will provide significantly more detail on those actions, but between now and then, I would like to thank Sarah Credland, Jacqueline Brooks and Joe Barrett for all their hard work on getting us to this point. I personally have been more demanding of officers on this piece of work than any other to date, but given the weight of the responsibility we bear on this topic, I think that's precisely the right approach. And I know that officers across the council share the same commitment to our mission to go as far as possible in reducing homelessness in West Northamptonshire.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Adam. Over to our speakers. So first of all, Councillor Beardsworth, Sally.
Thank you, Chair. And you're absolutely right, Councillor Brown. It is a moral obligation to this council to provide at least some sort of home for people in our care. Bearing in mind now we've lost 14,000 properties through the right to buy. And we're in this dilemma because of that. I just wonder, there's nothing wrong with the strategy at all, except it's how we're going to deliver it. You know, you can write things down. I can say, I'm going to lose 2 stone by the weekend. It's not going to happen, but there's always something you can try and do. But unfortunately with this, it's how, you know, develop a council-led affordable program to increase the number of council houses, 80 in the last quarter. We need 80 every quarter to try, and we still wouldn't catch up. That's the problem. You've got here as well, ensuring value for money to procuring temporary accommodations. We've made an awful lot of landlords extremely rich out of people's misery as well losing their homes, and being charged a lot of money to do that. The privilege of using it. And that's something I really do get very angry about. We talk about affordable, we've got to have affordable rents. We can't have landlords coming along and putting up their rents by £200-300 a month that people can't afford. We've got to have some sort of restraint on people putting money up so they can get people out of the house and charge more money. We've got to get people that are, we have a lot of responsible landlords, don't get me wrong, but we have a few that aren't, and they're out there to make a killing, and they're doing it on the back of other people's lives. Just to go through it, we've just heard tonight that the government is allowing people out of prison 2 months early. That's going to put another strain on councils, that people coming back to the area that might need accommodation. That's another problem that we've got to deal with, that central government is putting people out because they haven't got room in prisons anymore. So we will have to pick up that if we have people coming back to West Northants to accommodate them. And it says develop innovative services to help young people. Young people, all young people need help when they're starting out in life's path. A lot of them have very good parents that help them, you know, that buy groceries, that help them out with money, show them how to pay bills, teach them how to do things. Some children don't have that, especially looked after children going into care. And I've heard today that from Northampton Partnership Homes, one of their housing officers saying that we really need to tighten up and give people more training in how to budget, how to pay bills, how to manage living on your own, and also for looking after the fact that they're isolated when they go out from living with a foster care family or in a home. So there's nothing wrong with the strategy. It's just how we're going to implement it. And I don't envy you at all, because we're in a terrible situation in this country at the moment, where we've got a lot of homeless people, a lot of people in temporary accommodation, and a lot more coming that way. And I really do wish you all the very best, that you can solve some of these problems, because as you say, it's men, women and children we're talking about. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Sally, did you want to come up with any particular comment at this point, Adam?
Grateful to Councillor Beardsworth, grateful for Councillor Beardsworth's approval of the strategy. She says that we don't identify the how. I disagree with that. You know, every theme has a what we will do section. And as I identified in my presentation, there'll be a detailed delivery plan in May, which will add further flesh to the bones. So I think we've laid out very clearly the principles of delivery. The detail will come in May, and I hope that will leave Councillor Beardsworth more reassured on that front. I'm not going to get into the other issues, and especially not the right to buy. We've had that discussion umpteen times. And just on the landlords becoming rich through other people's misery and what have you, we have a legal duty to provide temporary accommodation. By hook or by crook, we need to put people into homes. We don't have the luxury of saying, well, we don't want to make people rich out of this. We need to put people into homes, and unfortunately, that means that some people are going to make a profit. You know, we're taking very clear steps with a lot of government support to expand our estate of temporary accommodation, as well as a host of other means, so that we reduce our over-reliance on nightly lets, which is probably the kind of accommodation that you're thinking of, Councillor Beardsworth. But you know, we have legal duties to fulfil, and we're always looking at further mitigations on the cost front, as well as to provide better quality temporary accommodation for residents who need it.
Thank you. So next we've got Councillor Purser. Bob.
Thank you, Chair. I'll try not to repeat Councillor Beardsworth's comments, which I very much associate myself with, and just to endorse Councillor Brown's comments in the strategy, which I think are a very good introduction to the position that the council should be taking. And just to say, yes, I very much support this strategy. I think it's absolutely on the right lines. I've just got 3 comments. One is that homelessness is quite a dynamic beast, really, and it changes. I would thought that the nature of homelessness pre-COVID and post-COVID is different, and if you look back over time, the strategy needs to be able to pick up trends and be adapted through because of changing trends in homelessness. National policy seems to have an impact locally, and that we need to be able to respond to that. The second thing is I'm still concerned about how our planning policy relates to this policy, and whether our planning policy is going to deliver against the needs of our housing policy or housing needs, if I'm not getting myself in a muddle. And I think some of us have got to really pay attention to that over the coming months as we look at our planning policy documents. And just one thing, as I was reading through this, and I hope Councillor Brown can reassure me that I've not overlooked something, which I might have done, but I don't see anything in the document talking about kind of monitoring and review of the strategy. Have we missed that out? If we have, some of us have been to several consultations, and if we have, we've missed it, because I think a strategy like this does need to be kind of monitored and reviewed as we go along. But I think this is an excellent start. We really look forward to the delivery plan coming up in coming months.
Okay, thank you, Bob. You're going to comment again, Adam? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Purser. I think you always speak very thoughtfully on these issues, and that's appreciated. Absolutely right that homelessness is a dynamic beast. That's why when the question was put to me about the length of the strategy, I did steer officers towards writing up a 3-year strategy rather than a longer term document, because I think we need to have that sort of medium term vision rather than something that will become stale beyond that 3-year timetable. Planning policy, yeah, it's incumbent upon every member to read the Planning Policy Committee papers for the meeting on Thursday. Pick out any concerns relating to your local area, to relating to portfolios if you're a cabinet member or a shadow cabinet member. How it relates to housing and homelessness. I've had as you'd imagine, I've had lots of discussions with the planning team over this. The reassurances I've been given are that the permissions around exemption sites will contribute greatly towards us being able to deliver greater numbers of social and affordable homes. So fingers crossed on that front. And then just finally on the monitoring front, page 135 of the pack, page 25 of the appendix, it just says verbatim, we'll develop a dynamic 12-month delivery plan to be monitored and reviewed annually. So if that's not clear, then to my reading, that captures what you were saying. It will include a full rundown of how we're delivering against the strategy. So I'll personally provide that reassurance to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob. And finally, Councillor Randall. Wendy. You're happy, all covered. Thank you very much indeed. Okay, any further points at all? Anything else you wanted to say, Adam, or that anybody else wanted to ask on this? No? Okay. That's good. Well, in which case then the recommendations of section 3, can you just signal your agreement, please, to those recommendations? Agreed? Great, thank you very much. Takes us on to item 9. This is the communication and engagement strategy. I was just going to pick out a couple of points from this, following which we've got 2 speakers, Councillors Humphreys and Randall. So we developed over the last 3 years, really, our approach on communications. In 21-22, our first year, initial focus was to establish and stabilise the council's new communication channels. It was an interim structure, and we were embedding a new council, new branding, and so on. 22-23, we were restructured. The LGA looked closely at our approach, told us that we need to take a fresh approach, and that's been very, very successful. It's included engaging business partners where individual members of the comms team develop therefore specialist knowledge within a department or a service area. And that's paid dividends enormously. 23-24, we're a highly motivated team now, and the council has seen a notable increase in proactive forward plan communications throughout a wide variety of different ways, whether that's the fortnightly e-news, the publication of the new West Northants paper magazine that goes through the door twice a year, and so on. So we've supported enormous amount of activity, including council content consultations during this past year that have seen a 133% increase in the amount of public participants. That's a really important role for the comms function, which means receiving 12,700 nearly responses compared to about 5,500 in the previous year. We've also developed in-house capabilities for some of the things you might otherwise buy in. Graphic design, video production, and so on. So that's all done in-house at much lower cost. We've even actually made a modest bit of money by selling that on to external partners. So it's really time now to build a proper strategy, and that's what this does. It sets out our vision, really, which is to better inform, engage, and involve our communities, our colleagues, and our partners, so they know better what we're doing. Create better awareness and better understanding of what the council's up to, so that people feel engaged and want to have their say. Develop public trust, so they understand that they can see that we're making efforts to be transparent with the things that we're doing, how we're spending their money, what we're doing with their services. We obviously need to be as inclusive as possible. That means putting messages out on lots of different mediums. Be innovative, evolve with the changing digital landscape, and meeting our residents' needs. So this is the strategy. I think a couple of things I wanted to highlight. It's a really good read, but if you turn to the second or third page, we've got our principles. And I think what we're doing here in supporting this is we're committing publicly to these principles, which is that we'll be open, honest, and accountable, focusing on the decisions we make and the outcomes that matter for our residents, accessible, clear, easy to understand, and consistent. We don't want to confuse anybody. Meaningful and inclusive, using and developing those channels that work best for our audiences, timely and relevant, responding to the news agenda quickly and effectively, creating the news agenda, two-way and engaging, creating a shared voice between our public, our people, and our partners, where we listen to and act on the trust that we've built with them, improving awareness and so on. And you'll see that we have enabled residents to have their say in 70 consultations and engagement campaigns on various different services. That's outlined on page 5 of the strategy, which is page 147 on the pack. And you'll see important things there, like the cost of living, how vital it's been to get that message out, or safety campaigns like the no batteries, never been batteries, and a whole range of different really important campaigns that have been run. So this is our comm strategy, reiterates our values, how we think we should go about things. I'll pause there. Finally to mention, yes, on page 156 of the pack, this is a great way to look at how our communications supports our corporate strategic plan priorities, the things we have said are important in the corporate plan, and also our Live Your Best Life ambitions. And I like this tick box that shows the activity that's taken place to cover all of those important areas to make people more aware of what's going on. I'll pause there then and take our 2 speakers. The first one is Councillor Humphreys. Rosie, over to you.
Thank you. I welcome the strategy, but I do feel cautious about any communication strategy which continually emphasizes the need for a compelling narrative. Of course, by narrative, the reference is to non-fiction. However, a clear and consistent message rather than a gripping story seems to fit more naturally in the functions of a local authority. I certainly welcome the principles of building trust and being open, honest, and accountable. So in this spirit, I can't help but point out one or two unintended inaccuracies. There's an emphasis on a young council. I don't think we're that young. And referring to, we're not a couple of years, we are a couple of years into our journey. We're actually nearing 3 years, I think, aren't we? And we've learned lessons from the challenges faced by legacy councils, and we will not repeat them. It's good to know we've learnt the lessons, but challenges, really, I do ask the best WNC wordsmith to come up with a more honest reference to something referring to our disgraced county council, where the words such as hubris, cultural malaise, financial mismanagement, and failure of leadership were actually the challenges faced. In the interest of openness, the frequent pieces by Becky Hudson in the Chronicle and Echo, I feel, should indicate that the authors are a West Northants employee and not a journalist on the paper. To my mind, the most positive ambition is pride in place. We do have a strange sort of cultural reticence, I think, in this area about blowing our own trumpets and saying what's fantastic about it, this area, of which there are many features. Finally, in the part on our very rich heritage, I do think churches ought to be included, because churches such as Brixworth, Holy Sepulchre, and St. Peter's in Northampton are of national interest and importance. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Rosie. And then next, Councillor Randall. Wendy, over to you.
Mine is a very quick one. Obviously, I know Becky from DDC days, and she used to be exceptionally good at getting all our meetings dates out there and continuously firing them. But I don't see any, like this meeting this evening, that hasn't been publicised. I don't see any of our meetings publicised. So my call to you, Becky, is please, and same as if we're doing a task and finish panel or something, and we're inviting members of the public to come along, if we can promote that to make them aware that it's happening, so we can have public participation. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That's probably a valid point, but consider that. Thank you very much. I don't know to respond to some of the other points, really. I think you do need a compelling narrative to get people's attention. Most people I speak to said, "Oh, we didn't know this happened. We didn't know you did this. We didn't know about the other." It's really hard to get messages out to people. And the newspaper circulation is different now. There's online. People don't. There's a huge choice of TV channels and everything else. People don't always read the stuff that falls through their door. So you do have to try and make that message compelling just to get it across to people, really. The cost of living stuff, I couldn't believe how much coverage there was, but many people said, "Oh, I didn't know the council was doing anything." It's hard to get people's attention, really. I think Adam tells me this is right, that we're probably still the newest council in the country, so we're relatively young. I'm not sure if the alternative word for challenges would necessarily put you forward for a job in communications, Rosie, but thank you for your suggestions. That's good. I think that captures a few points, doesn't it, really? Is there any other comments that anybody wanted to make at all on this changes or anything? No, that's good. In which case, then the recommendations, I think, yes, they're again at section 3. Just ask you to signal your agreement, please, to the recommendations. Agreed? Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. That takes us on to item 10. This is the establishment of West Northants Local Access Forum. Phil is going to highlight a couple of points from this, after which we have one speaker, Phil, which is Councillor Purser.
Thank you, Chairman. I will be brief on this one. I think it's a fairly straightforward matter. Prior to the disaggregation of the highway and transport functions, there was a joint local access forum that covered the complete geography of Northamptonshire. West Northants Council now has the opportunity to formally establish a local access forum to cover the geography of West Northamptonshire. In doing so, the new local access forum will be able to concentrate on matters that impact the area of West Northamptonshire. Mr. Chairman, I think the report is self-explanatory and recommends that we agrees that West Northamptonshire should formally withdraw from the previous county-wide local access forum. We're the only ones left in it, as the North already have. So, but we still technically signed up to it, so we do need to formally withdraw, and that we establish our own West Northamptonshire local access forum and adopt the terms of reference list detailed in Appendix A of the report, Chair. I'm happy to propose.
That's great. Thank you. Thanks, Phil. Bob, over to you.
Yes, Chair, just to say, I think this is a very useful development, very welcome. If it links in with the local cycling and walking plans, I think that will be really good. If it works well, I think it will improve our relationships with our parish councils and also with landowners. I think we'll see a positive relationship. I think that could be a very positive thing. I'm sure there are many interested voluntary groups who'd want to be involved with the partnership and interested in promoting cycling and walking in our splendid countryside. We've got the Northamptonshire Walking Group, which is an excellent organisation and really actually helps promote the county or this part of the county nationally. So I think that's really good. And I suppose just to note, my view is that well-marked footpaths reduce people trespassing on where they shouldn't be going. And it's in everyone's interest that we have good footpaths, well signposted, good styles, and that we deal with problems as they come up. And a group like this is in a good position to do that. So I think this is welcome development. Thank you.
Jolly good. Thank you, Bob. Thank you very much. Any other comments?
Can I just thank Councillor Purser for his comments? Very welcome. And yes, I totally agree. Signposting is very important, and that's something we're looking to improve on and brand the signposting in West Northamptonshire as West Northamptonshire footpaths. So we are moving ahead.
Jolly good. Thank you. Any further comments or questions on this one? No? Okay. Recommendations in section 3 are about withdrawing from the Northamptonshire Local Access Forum and establishing a West Northampton Local Access Forum. Can I just ask you to signal your agreement to those recommendations? Thank you very much. Okay, that's good. Final item for this evening is the risk management strategy and strategic risk register. Malcolm will pick out a few highlights from this, after which we have 4 speakers. We have with us the chair of the Audit and Governance Committee, which is Councillor Cecile Irvine-Smith. Then we have Councillor Humphreys, Councillor Purser and Councillor Randall. So Malcolm, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Right, well, I'm not going to go through the detail of his. You've all read it, those that are interested enough. A risk register is always a very important thing to have and a very difficult thing to put together. There's no end to it if you're not careful. And we think we've captured here. Adrian's over in the corner and done a very good job. Thank you, Adrian. Appreciate that. And the difficulty always is having capturing as many risks as you can, but not too many, so you can't actually handle them. So I think that we've got the balance right here, and I'll be very interested in the comments, and I'm sure Cecile will have something to say on that without any doubt whatsoever, and the others as well. So I'm going to leave it at that, Chair, and just see what people have to say, because the view I take here is that always interested in good ideas, and this isn't by any means a monopoly on them, but we like to think it's a competent start. We'll see what you got to say. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Malcolm. So let's go to our first speaker, Councillor Irving Swift. Welcome, Cecile.
Thank you for letting me speak tonight. And I will speak as a chairman of the Audit and Governance Committee. First, I would like to thank all the officers and all the cabinet members for having that paper in front of us tonight. It sounds that it was a short paper, an easy paper, but we started that journey as soon as we became West Northamptonshire County Council. So I am very pleased you have listened to the concern of the Audit and Governance Committee. We wanted a risk register that was agile, which was mobile. We wanted risk to move. We wanted mitigation. So thank you so much, because you have listened to the recommendation of our Audit and Governance Committee. I just have, and I will say that it will inform our internal auditor for looking at what he has to look as his job. And also for the external auditor, it is crucial to have a good risk register and something that is fit for purpose. I think now we have a good document. I just would like, if you could bear with me, to, if it's possible, you have, sorry, my things, on the risk review and report. I just would like to see if you will consider, you have a little word who said that it is on risk review and report, and quarterly you will meet, the EPB will meet, and the EPB is made up of cabinet member and officer of the council, with the option for the head of internal audit and risk management to attend if there is any significant risk escalation. I will, if you will bear with me, I think it's very important for our internal auditor to always be present. So it's not by invitation, he should be at that meeting. And as chair of audit, not to participate, but to listen, because I think it will inform any chair of audit of just for this quarterly meeting to see if there is something, because I will paraphrase Jenny Churchill, we are looking, the audit is looking at your past because we want to secure your future. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Cecile. Our next speaker then is Councillor Humphreys. Rosie, over to you.
Thank you. As a member of the Audit and Governance Committee, I welcome this report, the Risk Management Strategy Framework and updated strategic register. It's striking that two issues, what one might call structural societal failures, the cost of the living impact and availability of affordable rental accommodation, are identified, are included in the strategic register now. I'd also like to draw your attention, just going back to what I spoke on before, which I meant to mention in my previous comments. There's now a strategic communications and reputational risk relating to historic issues relating to legacy councils, which might not be managed or communicated in a timely and effective manner. What I would like to raise, I note that any implications relating to climate impact are considered as part of the development of the risk strategy. And what I would like to raise is the value of adding another risk, namely climate change risk. As we're all aware, climate change is the most significant threat globally and locally. the risks that the council could face, financial loss, failure of service delivery, physical risks to people and damage to organisations' reputation, could all materialise from extreme weather events and health impacts, consequences, of course, of climate change. For example, more floods create more road damage, evacuations from sites such as Billing Aquadrome, an inevitable increase in financial pressures. Severe heat waves may make service delivery challenging, if not impossible, and physical health is very much impacted negatively by excessive heat and air pollution. As to damage to organisations' reputation, it's already taking a hit with regular protests outside the Guildhall and the high instance of pollution in our county town. So I would suggest that climate risk should be subjected to the risk matrix and ask if our risk appetite for this is either averse or minimalist, cautious, open, or seeking. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Rosie. Thank you. Yeah, need to reflect on that a little more. Discuss with colleagues, I think. I get that. I get that, though. Next speaker is Councillor Purser. Bob.
Thank you again, Chair, and again, I welcome this document. I think this is a good piece of work. It's a good process for us to have, and it's a good discipline for the organisation to work through as we look at our work. The problem comes when the mitigations are not under our control, or when the risks are not under our control, and that's part of the world we live in. And I suppose, like Councillor Longley, I prefer just to have the big issue things within a risk register. I think if we have too much detail, then we don't focus enough on what are the big issues. And I just wanted to pick up 3 of those issues that seem to me important for us to keep airing. Not that they haven't been aired before. I think one is the Household Support Fund. The problem there is the government's given us an answer for 6 months, and then we get another gap. That's a problem that we have, and it impacts significantly on our residents, and it then has significant knock-on to our services. And that fits into the third of my points, if you hang on to that. But yes, where government is making short-term decisions when we need a long-term plan, it is a problem. Obviously, just to note the Children's Trust, and we have some mitigations in place there. The challenge there is that they're relative, we will see the benefits of those, I hope, but it will take longer than a year to produce. It might take 2 or 3 years before we see before we see the benefits of that. And also there, I still am concerned that the government has not acted on the Competition Commission recommendations on residential placements. And that's a real issue, I think, continues to be a real issue. I think the third issue is the financial sustainability issue, which it's a big picture issue, but how do we manage demand? That has to be by getting into prevention services. We have to find ways of maximising our income and our revenue. And we have to manage our resources well. And I think my sense is that as we have a really good finance team who are doing a good job, and therefore the risks that we could face are less because of the competence of the team we've got. And I think they are able to work through this kind of far enough in advance so that we don't hit the kind of problems that you might see. I think following John Harvey-Jones, whenever he went into an organisation, he always sacked the finance director. I'm sure that isn't going to happen here because because I think we seem to be well on top of managing things. And I hope the budget process we've gone through is an illustration of that. and that we continue to learn the lessons from this year's process as we move into next year's process. That's a bit of a waffle, Chair. I'm sorry at the end of this meeting, but there we go.
No, thank you, Bob. The LGA peer review group is probably our equivalent of John Harvey Jones, and they said we got an excellent finance director, so hope that reassures you. And then finally, Councillor Randall, Wendy.
Thank you. Thank you for replying to my email on the cost of living, Jonathan. You know, I'm keen, you know, that our Northamptonshire MPs, you know, will hopefully stand up in Parliament and, you know, lobby and, you know, get us a bit more money. The inter-authority agreements, what is the worst scenario that we could envisage on that? And how would that affect us? Just reading, because it does say about, you know, not being able to, the inability to finalise accounts and balance our budgets. What can you put that in simple terms to me? And the other one that I'm really worried about is the ability of affordable rental accommodation. I've come across quite a few people this week that their landlord has said that they're going to be selling and looking around at rental properties. There are just so few properties around, you know, and they're really anxious that they're not going to be able to find anywhere to live. And when they are coming out of rental accommodation, it's like a 200 or 300 or 400 leap to what they're already paying. And they said, you know, there is just absolutely no way they can afford it. So, you know, is that not a risk that we're going to see more and more homeless people or homeless families? You know, and a higher risk than what it is graded at, because I think it's going to, I can see it getting a lot worse. A risk that the finances are not controlled by the Children's Trust, leading to additional costs. Are we looking to bring any of the services back in-house as the private sector can continue to hold us to ransom and just keep increasing their costs? So they're my, you know, they're my questions to you, Malcolm. Thank you.
We all done? Right, okay. Well, I'd like to sum up here by really saying that what you've got to realise about the risk register is that it's a living document. This isn't a definitive thing that's going to stick with us. And I think that Cecile pointed it out quite well. And to be fair, Cecile's been banging on about this for a couple of years already. So if anybody's put this together in this, she should take the credit for it. And the fact it's going to be reviewed on a regular basis, and that is absolutely key. Been a lot of ideas here. I got about 8 ideas here come up from people. Now, we won't decide them tonight. I wouldn't do that. They'll be decided at ELT or to discuss there, and then they'd come back for recognition. So any one of those might well end up in the risk register, and it might rise to 20 items on there, might go down to 10. It doesn't stand still. If it stands still, we're probably not taking any notice of it, is probably the answer to that. And a number of them come up. I mean, the Children's Trust is an obvious one. We all know that, and there's items in there that we talk about it every day almost. And the things like, you know, what if you don't get agreement with the North on things? Well, that if you can't get agreement, you don't get agreement, things don't happen properly and so on. And whether that's a significant enough to be added to the 15 we've got here, that's a debate that you have, because we're not careful, as Bob alluded to as well, that get too many, you don't do it. You know, you've got to be practical about these things. And so every one of those I've heard tonight, we will put up, and not one of them will be ignored. So I thank you all for putting it in, but I'm not going to give answers tonight because I haven't got them, but we will.
Okay, thank you. So just all I wanted was just what was the worst scenario that you could see, but you know, that was the only thing if we couldn't.
Worst scenario if we don't get agreement.
Yeah.
Well, you know, you don't get agreement. I mean, what happens? You got a situation where they do one thing and another. The biggest single situation is if you got something in the when the two councils went apart, you can't get agreement there. That has got to be resolved, and that's dangerous because it just floats away, you know, and you can't tie down your numbers in proper audit. So that's the sort of risk involved. I mean, it's not going to make a serious cash impact. It means you can't operate properly. That's the impact of it, and that's poor for accounts.
Thank you. Thank you, Malcolm. Thank you,
That's
Wendy.
I think, Chair, unless anybody else, got anything else?
Anybody else, any comments at all or questions at all on this? No? No, once again, I think it's a great thing, as Malcolm said, that we should be considering this regularly. It will change, it will be dynamic, won't it? It'll grow and so on, and hopefully we'll overcome some risks and some new ones will pop up without doubt, but this will be something we'll be reviewing regularly. My thanks to Cecile and especially to Adrian for bringing this to us. If there are no further comments, the recommendations, as always, are at section 3. Can I ask you please to signal your agreement to those recommendations? Agreed. Thank you very much. That was our last item. So thank you, everybody, for your attendance here this evening. Thank you very much.